the Rosenberg gang and all those like, what was their motivation to support communism? Was it money, politics? What was
Politics. They were communists when they were in college. They stayed committed communists through their employment years and converted that to activism.
So even the universities were being infiltrated back then?
All the way back then, that's when it started.
Okay, thank you.
Make it a question.
Rosenberg attended CCNY, City College of New York. And in 1938, you had different student groups, different outgoings. You had the Stalinist students, and then you had the Trotskyite students. The Trotskyite students was headed up by a fellow by the name of Irving Kristol, you'll read about later. Bill Kristol was his kid. And they would debate back and forth. But the technical type guys belonged to the Stalinists, that is, the Rosenberg group, and the other, the Trotskyites, who had a different theory of world communism, belonged to the neoconservative group of Irving Kristol. But I think one of the points you might have emphasized, and you did a very good job, and a good report on a complex thing like Witness, the book Witness, that's what basically his book was on. But Henry Dexter White was an assistant secretary of the Treasury under, what was his name? Well, but he was an assistant, and he had given plates of American money plates from the Treasury to the Soviets. You mentioned the book Venona. Have you ever read it?
No.
I suggest if you got pencil and paper, take it down. You can get it through the public library.
Is it titled
It didn't come out until
Venona?
1995. It's called The Venona Secrets, Exposing Soviet Espionage and America's Traitors. The authors are Herbert Roberstein and Eric Brindle, Regnery Publishing, 2000, and it's 603 pages. It contains a lot of what you said over there. You talk about the Roosevelt administration. I have a notation here. Harry Dexter White was the #1 man, right? Harry Dexter White was putting pressure on companies. Harry Hopkins was putting pressure on companies to send uranium to the USSR during the war. So
another Venona book written by, it's called the Venona Project, written by Harvey Clare, K-L-E-H-R, and John Earl Haynes. So there's two books on Venona that we.
How do you spell that Venona?
V-E-N-O-N-A.
a lot of times they misspell it as Verona. Venona.
Steve, I think, has a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good talk. What are the lessons that we can take from this for our work today?
One is the story that we already know, or the axiom, if you repeat something long enough, it becomes true, whether it's true or not. I think the second one is so fundamental. Get the facts, don't listen to the media, make your decision. Take a look at where the policy is being formulated and ask who the guys that are formulating that policy are and what their interests, the real interests are. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it, I know it's this administration that, what's his name, Green? He was a non-communist socialist that was in the administration. I can't remember the capacity, but I believe it was because of the press that he was getting from Glenn Beck, accusing of that. And knowingly, they had videotapes on television during some of his private speaking engagements that he admitted he was socialist/communist. That he and Jones there. So, I mean, it's in this administration. We have more than one communist right now.
I don't disagree with that.
Other questions? I'm sorry, Bill had a comment.
Well, I have a couple of comments, if it's all right. Just adding to what you said, and I thank you for your presentation because it was very good. But I just wanted to make the Roosevelt administration, and I'm a historian also, the Roosevelt administration was infested with communists. I mean, they talked about 200. I think there were thousands. And I've read Witness twice. It's a book. It's pretty thick and it's very involved, and you almost have to read it twice to get anything out of it.
What's the time period that covers?
That's by Whittaker Chambers, and it's his explanation of why he did what he did. And part of what he did in his book was partially because of religion. He realized that what the communists were doing was bad. It's interesting to know, and I'll come back to that in a minute, but it's interesting to know that when Harry Truman went over to Potsdam, and he's meeting with Stalin and Churchill, and he tells Stalin about, we've got this atomic bomb, the war's going to end. There's hardly any reaction from Stalin. And this is really confusing to Truman. Well, Truman already knew everything. In fact, the Russians were already working on their own bomb. But going
Bill
back...
Bennett mentions that too in his book.
Pardon?
Bill Bennett mentions that in his book.
Okay. Also, Whittaker Chambers, and I think this is when you said what's pertinent to today, is Whittaker Chambers in one part of the book says something basically that he wondered how communists could be getting along so well with everything that was going on in the Roosevelt administration. And he finally concluded that the problem was that most of the administration people were progressives. And in reality, the two are almost the same. Progressivism and communism is so close that they couldn't differentiate themselves from anything else. So they all kind of fit in together. I thought that was always and that's kind of what's going on today also. But well, I'll let it go with that. But
Some more comments. I find it very interesting. I find a lot what you say is based
well,
on my research.
what he does is what Whittaker Chambers does is he goes. This is in the book. He goes to somebody. He wanted to meet with Roosevelt.
He does speak.
No, he does not. He wanted to, and he couldn't get through to him. But he did get through to Beale, who was one of the brain trust people, and he did get through to him. Pardon?
What, the B-U-E-L-L?
B-E-H-L, I believe.
Okay, yeah, go on.
And he had the guy got to, because he had like somebody who would arrange it for him, who was supposed to arrange it with Roosevelt, but the best he could do was Beale, and Beale was in the brain trust. And they met at his home, Beale's home, and he went through and started to tell all of this stuff. Well, Beale didn't seem to be that interested. I think it was an innocent thing. I don't think, because he did not seem to be communistic or anything like that. But he went to see him and told all of that stuff about what was going on. But that kind of got buried, and that's part of the stuff that you were talking about.
I think Beale did go to Roosevelt, and Roosevelt kind of just poo-pooed it.
Okay, that's not in the book. If maybe I'm mistaken, because that's a big book. But as I recall, he did. Maybe they never really knew whether Roosevelt found out about it.
Well, what I read, I think Roosevelt just shrugged his shoulders and said so.
And that could very well be, but there was nothing ever done about it. That's certainly true. So.
Another thing that you might have brought out, Alger Hiss, that he's talking about, a pretty boy from Princeton, was the first provisional president of the United Nations in San Francisco when they formed. Alger Hiss. And he denied all the denials, but when the Soviet KGB documents were opened up in 1989, 1990, Alger Hiss was vindicated. His name wasn't there. But you know where it was? In the files of the GRU, which is military intelligence. And he was even had a colonel C, Soviet colonel C.
Wait. Albert.
The other thing I might say about...
No, I just need clarification. You're saying that Alger Hiss, in fact, it was confirmed that he was communist in the communist military records.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, from the records that they found in the Soviet Union after the Berlin Wall, clearly show that the Rosenbergs were. I think if there's any question about the Rosenbergs,
We've been talking about indoctrination and setting the record straight through education. Great.